little late tonight, guys. Oh, been a very, very, very busy day. And remember, we all talked about doing this on 8 o'clock on tonight. So thankfully, I had a little extra time. But I've been mapping out my route. I'm going to Georgia Bushcraft tomorrow. And yes, you can use your wonderful little phone to navigate and etc. But the phone wants to take you to Atlanta. And I do not want to go through Atlanta. I want to do something else. But Georgia is a hot mess. Good evening, Chuck. Good evening, Gordon. Hello, brother Jonathan Frisbee. How you doing? But there ain't no direct dang route, and everything is all these little bitty things. And so before I ever leave, I'm carrying a map. I'm gonna mark down my dang route. And so, wrong end. That's all the turns. Highway 82 east, turn to 27. 27 becomes 280. Turn left up on Enterprise Church Road. Turn right on the Church Hill Road. Georgia Highway 41. Turn left, go north. Bona Vista. Turn right, 3rd Avenue. Also, turn left on Olive Street. 137 and 244 run together at Butler. Left, then head north on Broad Street. US 19. US 19. 22 and 80 run together. US 341 and 42 north. Take 42 north, cross I-75, Georgia 83 north. 83 becomes 213. Stay on 83, cross I-20, 83 again. Turn on Lions Club Road. 441-12924. All are on that road, and they become Tappan Spring Road. Tappan Spring Road turns into Old Salem Road. That turns to right onto Salem Road, left onto Hale Road, cross Coleham Ferry, becomes Watkins Springs across the road, left on Carhartt. You can see. Can't get there from here. It's one of them things. Before I trust that, I'm going to have backup plans. I'm going to have that hard copy sitting there. When it goes, no signal, I don't know where I am. I got a map, and I know a rough idea what they're tell me to do. So, good evening to everybody. Wow, everybody jumped in right quick. Jared, CJ, Anchor Down, hello there. Justin, good evening. Bob, good evening. Scooby, okay. K-Town. No, we said last week we are going to try it at 8 o'clock tonight. Well, it's 8 p.m. now, my time, 8 p.m. Central. You might be in a different time zone to me. Hiram, good evening. Let's see, K-Town. Good evening, Bushcraft. Preacher. Bang, bang, hello. Diane, good evening. Diane, Blackie, what causes cylinder over travel? Usually three factors working at the same time here. If the spring, the bolt and trigger spring are a little bit weak and there's a burr or something that's binding up the bolt where it's not popping up like it's supposed to, that can cause the cylinder to over rotate because it isn't catching it in time. So I always look for a burr in there and clean that up first. If that doesn't work, then I replace the spring, the trigger and bolt spring. Usually or tighten it up just a grunt. That will cause it to pop up and catch it if it's over traveling. If it's over traveling, it means it's not catching it. If it's under traveling, it means it's popping up too soon and it ain't getting a chance to get up. See, the last thing it can be is the hand can be just a grunt long and it's pushing it in rotation too far. And that's the reason I talk about when you reassemble the gun, everything, or the very first time you clean it up and you utilize it, you cock really, really slow and see if it locks up solid. You cock really, really fast. If it's going to under rotate, then you've got like a hand that's a little too short. The slow cocking will make it not rotate up and it's under rotating. If you've got a hand too long or a bolt not popping out, then it will over rotate. That's usually over rotation is the bolt's not catching it in time or your hand's a little bit too long. Hope that helps. Tiny Tide, good evening. Adam, good evening. Whew, it's been a long day. Yeah, Edgar, that's the problem with the maps. You look and figure out where am I really at. Well, Joseph, hello to Ohio. Mr. Kennedy, good evening. Stephen, good evening. Tim O'Neill. Tim O'Neill, excuse me. Gordon, I thought about converting my fishing lights to run off of my Craftsman drill batteries. Any ideas that could make them better? I've seen guys and go, depends on how much light you want. If you want the craft fish, I've seen guys go look in the automotive department. They make these strips of LED lights now that are supposed to go up in the wheel wells and stuff of trucks, and they run off of a little bitty, small battery, like a D battery. And I've seen guys take them and run them along the edge of their boat underneath where they could flip a switch, and then it'll run a year off of the battery you crank the motor off of and illuminate up under the boat that way. Very little power, and you ain't got to worry about it so much because it glues to the hull. It's just a series of LEDs that you can replace easily. Just figure out where your bumpers are going to rub, so you're not going to put all the work to put it on there, and then the first time you put it up on the trailer, you tear them off. But I've had several friends that have done that, or put it on a board they could just drop over the side, with like a chain or something, so they just hang right above water level because they're waterproof, because it's meant to be under the fender wells of a pickup truck or something, or car, so they can handle being splashed with water. And there's very, very, very little power. So just 2 cents. Warren Wrangler, good evening. Oh, K-Town, Star Navigation. I have done Star Navigation, but it's been a long time, brother. Just to be honest. Good evening, Pink. How you doing? And I am not an expert. I'll be straight up with you. I know how to navigate. I know how to find the star. I know other little key ports in my woods, my sky. But where you're at, I would suggest all you got to do is have an app today that you can get on your phone. So you just look at the sky and it'll tell you every star you're looking at. And that's a really good thing to have to kind of train you to go out and say, okay, all right, that's Jupiter, that's such, that's such, that's the constellation, whatever. And just get you to where you're recognizing them and realize that that's south, that's east, that's west, etc. Be a very good way to do it, because with that, I ain't got to memorize the constellation. I'll get where I can visually look at it and what it is, because the phone will immediately tell me what it is. John Kennedy, Blackie, I'm looking for a magnifier lens to add my fire kit. What was the one that you gave out at your gathering? That was a Eye of Simmons that Mike Simmons of Fuel the Fire, he makes those. And that's a real serious burning lens. In fact, the young man that got it told me that after he got it, he had played around with it a little bit, and he had left it uncovered and left it lay on his chest, and he got in his hammock and burned a hole in his shirt. So that quick, he had a hole. He didn't realize. And I warned everybody, do not focus on your hand. It'll be like sticking a hot soldering iron to it. That thing burns, baby. But Mike Simmons of Fuel the Fires, and they're called Eye of Simmons. That's where I got mine from, and that he does sell from time to time. Jonathan Gable, hello. Well, Pan, being a silver wolf simply means you got a little experience, you got a little time on you. It ain't necessarily by age. I had gray hair when I was 20. So I would say it's more like a frame of mind. If you're that part in your life where you're not chasing everything now and you're more interested in learning and sharing and trying to teach the next generation, you're a silver wolf. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Justin. Yeah, those things snap off any kind of bad wind. Oh, yeah. Uh, Shaner, Blackie, I have an 1851 Colt snub nose revolver. Any recommendations on a good holster that will fit it? If you're talking about for a field carry, I would look for the holsters that were made for the Ruger Signal 6. Not Signal 6, excuse me, Security 6. I had a friend that had a short barrel 51, and that's what he carried his in. And I make holster that's my little design I did for a pancake holster that I can put my short ones into. But I would look for any of the holsters that would fit a Ruger Security 6. Should fit that pretty well. But I agree. You save the fire starters from when everything is soaking wet. Try to do the other stuff of generating whatever. Don't be afraid to pull them out either. Don't go without a fire because it just doesn't happen. But yeah, focus on the technique, and most people focus on the ignition system. It's the ferro rod or the light or whatever. That is the last step. All the prep of gathering your stuff, generating your tender bundle, or your, whatever you're making, your bird nest or your tender bundle, and getting your firewood ready to go so that all you do is strike and put it. That was the reason they stressed so much early Boy Scouts one match. If you'd done all your prep work right, you shot one match and hit it, and you had a fire. You didn't have to worry about it in any condition. It was the prep work instead of burning a whole box of matches trying to make it catch or etc. And using those pucks absolutely is a great fire aid. But if you're having to rely strictly on pucks, you need to focus a little bit more on being able to do without a puck, because they're cheap. When you run out of pucks, if you don't know how to do it, you got a problem. Apex, I hear you. Yeah, there's supposed to be some fronts coming this way. James Smith, thank you very much. Okay, Jared, Blackie, Miss, etc. What got you started in cap and ball revolvers? Love history, Civil War movies, things like that. That just, I love the look of them. I love the way that the way they were shaped. And yeah, I thought modern Smith and Wesson and Colt, King Cobras and stuff were great, but the old percussion guns, just man, they had the cool factor. And you could, us kids, we could be 14 years old and order one of them things mail and get it. And so I purchased one at age 16. I think I was actually 14 from the Otasco, a 44 caliber, and that was my wood gun for quite a while. So one, it was practicality, it was usable, and there was a lot of history. And that just, the more I got to playing with it, the more serious I got with it, the more practical it became to me as a field gun. And I'm still in love with them. Bear, good evening. Um, Rob wants to know what type of blade would I recommend for general purpose for a silky saw, the large tooth, the medium tooth, or the small tooth. I'll be honest, I like the large tooth because most time when I'm cutting, I don't have to be that precision to cut. It's just cutting it down close. And I'm going to usually dress it with a knife when I get done, right? So if it's a little, I can just dress it up with a blade. And it's quick and it's aggressive and it gets wood down in a hurry, especially when you're trying to do shelter building and stuff like that. I like the more aggressive teeth on it. Now, if you're into doing traps and stuff like that, yeah, go with the fine tooth then. If you're wanting to make up pre-made up, you know, given length splits and everything else to try to base dimensional lumber, so to speak, in the field, then go with the fine cut. But I prefer the coarse cut myself. Chuck, good evening. Peter, yes, Davy Crockett was actually part of Jackson's volunteers that came down for the Creek and Indian War, and that was his first combat away from Tennessee and etc. But he was down here actually in the county I'm in right now, and that was his first taste of combat. Gordon, my grandfather gave me a 16 gauge Stephen with surface rust on it. Oiled the gun. Is there anything else I can do to help without having to reblue it? I typically what I tell people to do is just take you a good penetrating oil and soak it down real good. If you got enough oil, wet down a paper towel and just wrap it up and keep it wet for a day, and then come back with really, really fine steel wool. And don't bear down. A lot of times you can just take an old gym sock and turn it around to the rough sides to outside and card it, buff it real hard, and all that surface stuff will roll away and leave more or less an even finish. Unless there's a lot of pitting and stuff like that. After that, you just got to sand it and glue it. But that's about the best I can tell you to try to save it and bring it back. Now, I have seen guys take stuff and boil it, actually boil the barrel, boil the action, and etc. for 45 minutes or so, and the temperature of boiling water, 212, is not enough to take the temper out of it, but at the same time it is enough to change that rust from red oxide to black oxide, which is basically rust bluing, and then card it with really fine steel wool when they get done and oil it really good, and it looks fairly good. It's a good way to kind of pull one back a little bit. Harold, hello to Virginia. Why do they use BPL as abbreviation? It only has one beep. It's one of the things that just caught on and kept going. I'm sure somebody dig deep enough, you'll find out in the military that a BBL was a gun barrel and a BL was a battleship rifle gun or something, or a cannon gun. So I'm sure there was some practical reason back in the day. Jared, I know you will refer us to your Facebook on here. Do you want us to follow or send a friend request? What? It's totally up to you. It's just a lot of times people want to have a private conversation. They want to ask a question. They don't want people to think they're being dumb for asking or whatever. And I tell them to ask me on Facebook. So that's what I use it for more than anything else, is just a one-to-one contact other than this big public thing. And it's totally up to you. If you want to send me a friend request, and be honest, I don't do every single friend request, because I'd have done filled up a long time ago. And usually if it's a real, real hot, pretty chick sending me a thing, I assume that she's a Ugandan princess, needs help smuggling her inheritance out of the country or something. And I don't pick it up. But, most time I'll accept them and just say, hey. But that's what I use Facebook for, is a more private conversation. Harold, what is your opinion on BPS knives? I'm sorry, I'm not getting the BPS. Fred, you'd like me to do another 10Cs video, okay? We'll probably readdress that a little bit later and go back and look at it a little more in depth. I try to flesh it out and add a little bit of my own little take on some of it. So I will get around to it. K-Town, oh yeah. Hank Williams Jr. and Kid Rock. Hank Williams has a private place about 45 miles from me, up near a town called Troy, Alabama. And his daddy was from Vern, Alabama, which was Hank Williams. He's got something there on the old family thing, and they were super loud booms, sonic booms, and it was rattling windows and everything. The PD finally came out there and found Kid Rock and uh, Hank Williams Jr. basically drunk, and they had a big Napoleon original cannon shooting it out there. I mean, one of the big siege cannons, and they were out there shooting it on his land. So yeah, you can rattle windows with them things. William, hey Blackie, I seen someone review your gun butter. Where can I get it? Um, that is from Miss Lita, and I don't think I got it handy, but it's www handmade c3gac.com, and that's her site, and she's the one that puts that on her website and sells it. I do not have a can of it handy to read the. Hold on. Handmade by C, as in the letter C, 3 letter C, AC.com. That's where you won't be able to see that because of the glare, but she's the one. She's got it on there. When you go on there, just look up for it under either bullet butter or gun butter. Bullet butter is for dip lubing lead cast bullets, and the gun butter is the soft like Vaseline that you use to coat and do etc. with. Pam, what's your name on Facebook? It's Blackie Thomas on Facebook. Okay, Jared, how to use a cane pole for catfish? One, use about 25-pound test line and use a very strong pole. Okay. Usually it's about a 25-pound test line. You got like that big a hook, pretty good size hook. I like circle hooks. And then you will have about 6 or so inches, and you will put a like one of the half-ounce lead weights on it, and you have a slip cork or have a cork at a given depth. Throw it out there, and you want to use something. I like chicken livers and chicken hearts, or something equivalent like that. And if it stinks, they like it. We've used Vienna sausages that we took and put out there in the sun with some rotten food that we were throwing away. Just put it in a black bag, put it out there and let it get real ripe in the sun, and then use those. Yeah, they love stink. Them whiskers are the way they smell, and they love stink. So catfish come to stink, and that's basically what we did for cats. K-Town, exactly. Hank Williams. William Bennett, glad to help. Greg Wolf, good evening. Is a 357 carbine a viable woods gun? Yes. I had a short trapper in mine, and it would do anything a 30-30 would do out to 150 yards. Because taking that revolver cartridge and putting it into a locked breech, you add somewhere between 3 to 500 feet per second because it's not losing pressure around the cylinder gap. And the powder is designed to burn it real fast because it's got a short barrel. Well, you're locking it into an 18 to a 20-inch barrel, and you're getting every bit of horsepower out of it. So what is a standard 38, when you load it into the carbine, what comes out the barrel duplicates a hot 357. And if you put a 357 in it, what comes out of the barrel duplicates 30-30. So just think anything a 30-30 will do out to 100 and some odd yards, it'll do it. If you can hit it, it'll do the job. Oh, the Pakistani knives and China knives. a lot of that stuff to me is hit and miss. I have seen some really good ones, and then I've seen some, you know, um, a lot of the knives are coming out of that part of the world. It is kind of a hit and miss. It's just what the quality control is on it. Years ago, I had a knife that had come out of Pakistan that was as good as any case pot knife. It was real bone handle. That whatever that steel was held an edge great. It was not stainless. It would rust, but you could get a razor out of that, and it didn't dull for crap. I mean, it was a hard Rockwell on that thing. I think I paid $8 for that knife. On the other hand, I have seen some of them that are utter junk. So it really is a hit and miss. You just got to look at what they got and see what you think. My 1911 will shoot full metal jacket fine, but it jams to hollow points. They catch up. Like, how can I fix this without grinding on the ramp? Change your magazine, because what can happen is the lips of the magazine get spread and the angle of the bullet is wrong, and it's hooking on that lip. If your lips are a little too tight, it's pushing the front of the round down and it's hooking the bottom of the ramp. If they're a little open, it'll go above that and run right in. Anytime I have a loading issue with any automatic, my first suspect is always the magazine. Years ago, I was doing gunsmith. I had a guy that had gone to Wilson Custom and he got a 1911 race gun, and it would jam. And he was kind of crestfallen about it because he put a lot of money in that thing. That was like a $1,500 gun. And he brought it to me, and the first thing I did to test it was I went out and tried it with it, and sure enough, about halfway through the magazine, it'd start jamming. And what it was is the lips were a little wrong, and as the round would come up, it was less spring pressure. When it was full, there was so much spring pressure, it kind of spread the lips just a grunt, and it fit well. But as the rounds came up, the pressure went down, and the lips came in just a little bit, and it went to jamming. I dropped a off the shelf surplus brand new 1911 mag in it. Man, it ran like new money. You know, it was just a bad mag is all. And I pulled a gag on him. I told him to come over. I want to show him how to fix it. If this problem ever happens again, so he'll know how to fix it. And he gets there. I had this like telephone pole that was set in the ground that I used for a bench and all kinds of stuff out there at the shooting range. So it was about chest high. You could prop on it and do stuff. And I said, okay, this is what your mag is doing. I loaded up, and sure enough, about 3 rounds in, it went jamming, and we struggled through it. I said, okay, here's how you adjust it. And I ejected the mag out, and I put it on top of that thing, and a 2-pound sledgehammer, and I mashed that sucker flat as a piece of paper. I thought he was going to pass out. He was gasping for air and everything else. I said, the magazine is not serial number to the gun. It's just a mag. And I pulled the other one out, put it in, and it ran like new money. I said, just a bad mag, that's all. And it was the fact I'd smashed that magazine flat, and he just turned, he turned inside and out. Oh, great. If you have a rolling block, needs a new barrel, lots of options, but I can't get large rifle primers. Looking for options. That's going to be a challenge. As I understand it from something I heard recently that was reported from the CCI, that they're going to, in June, will be a big run of caps. They run them seasonally, and that's when they're also going to start running primers. Apparently, they're running seasonal now. They're doing military contracts and stuff, and then they'll take like 3 months and they'll make a bunch of primers and stuff. So save up your pennies and be ready so that mid June to early July, you're going to see primers start showing up and caps. That's the time to go ahead and buy you 1,000, because it may be a year till they run the next batch. So I just wanted to pass that over to you. Edgar, like I said, some of them knives can be decent. I've had a couple of Bowie knives back in the day that was made over that was actually decent knives, but it's spotty. You just don't know. You treat it as an individual, not a broad statement of all of them. Um, Semper Tyrannis, the Cold Steel does their own quality control, so it should be fairly decent. You know, they yes, they do have them made overseas, but they do the quality control on it as opposed to the manufacturer. And so, and if there's a problem, I'm gonna replace it like that. So you shouldn't have too much problem with it. Anytime, snakeheads, what invasive species do you have in your area? We got gobies and lampiras up here in Ontario. The zebra mussels are insane. I haven't heard of anything new lately that it came in. I know that snakeheads, uh, goldfish, Asian carp, and several other things that showed up. And what it is, it's people that's getting them at the markets, that live fish and stuff like that, like at the Korean markets and stuff like that, and they're turning them loose, hoping they populate so they can catch them without having to buy them. That's the reason all the anacondas and the pythons, because they were selling the snot out of them down there in Miami and places like that in the pet stores. It was a huge fashion thing back in the 80s to have you a snake wrapped around your neck, and then when he got 6 feet long and he wasn't any fun to play with anymore, they just take him out and turn loose in the Everglades. Um, so we've got Scovy ducks, which is a type of South American duck that have been brought up here basically for domestication for food and been turned loose. And they're showing up on ponds and stuff like that down here. Kind of an ugly duck. But goldfish, snakeheads I've heard of. I haven't seen one personally in a while yet. And it's just where if it'll thrive, they'll bring it. Wow. Yeah, those zebra mussels. I've heard about that. Fred, thank you very much. I will get. I finally got that sucker. Big old Alabama mosquito, look like a B-52 going by. Great. Yeah, the 357 and a rolling block. Yeah. In fact, Navy Arms for a time back in the day made rolling block 357 in pistol form and in rifle form, and was kind of popular, And I prefer it over some of the other stuff because of how easy it is to load. Um, you got tons of powders available, tons of bullets, tons of molds, all kinds of it. And so if you take a round ball of proper dimension that would go into a muzzle loader and you load it into a case with a very small smokeless powder charge, you get about 1,000 feet per second. Well, you can shoot rabbits and squirrels with that. Then you drop a regular 38 in it, and again, it's coming out the barrel like a 357, what a handgun 357 would do. You can take small, medium, even large game close to that. And if I drop the big boy 357, a good warm hand load into it, I'll do anything a 30-30 will do with it. So that one little gun can now take just about anything on North American continent at decent close range, just by what you're dropping into it. Gordon, you haven't tried magnums yet. They're expensive kicking toys, and most people do not need the power of them, to be honest. Ross Seifert, he's one that came up with the 375 MBAW, and I think it was there was 2 or 3 different super calibers he came up with, where he was taking Ruger Super Blackhawk Bisleys and having custom bronze barrels put onto them, and 5-shot cylinders, and those guns were just brutal to shoot. You hard hear you ended there. But he was wanting a handgun, Cape Buffalo, Rhino, stuff like that. And then like 5 or 6 years after he brought them out, he did a thing going, you don't want these. It's just one of them things where you, unless you're going against something that big, you just don't need all this power. Rifle's a better choice. Oh, I hear you. You know, one of them alligator handled ones. Yeah. Justin Blackie, number 10 or number 11 cats for revolvers? Yes. Usually it's supposed to be a number 10. Usually. But most people just, if you already got a muzzleloading rifle, most people just grab 11s for everything. But it's supposed to be 10 for the revolvers, and especially whenever you're talking about the little ones, like the pocket models and all, 10 definitely. But 10s or 11s, whichever you can get will work. It's just 11s are usually a little bit loose. You got to pinch them just a little bit. Gordon, I'd like to find a lever action under 1,000. I walked into a local gun shop 2 years ago and got one of the Uberti 92 copies in 45 Colt, and they also had it in 357, and it was $750. Their going price. So they're around. They're just hard to find. They don't make them that much. Cap Bart, good evening. Yeah, Rossi used, and remember, Rossi was bought out by Beretta. They were bought out by Taurus, and then Beretta bought out Taurus. So it's a Beretta, you know, down the line now. And you can still find them floating around for a couple of years there. Beretta was making them under, you know, Rossi was really doing it, but it was Beretta doing all the quality control on it. And those are very nice guns. Elders, yeah, you unless you're in a deer stand, I really recommend if you're going archery, you need to be up, or you need to have somebody with a 12 gauge backing you up, because if it doesn't go well and you tick off one, you can't reload fast enough to really stop a big one if he's motivated. I've seen them get hit, and it's like they flipped around in the air and were coming at you at dead run. I had a good friend of mine that was a supervisor for me years ago when I was a district manager, and he was in a deer stand about 14 feet up because there were hogs coming in, and he shot this big sow and with an arrow, and when he hit her, he had using a crossbow. When he hit her, she spun around and charged the tree instantly and ran the tree and knocked him off the deer stand. He was lucky he had his safety harness tightened up that put his feet like 6 feet off the ground, because it was like wham, and the whole tree went wham, 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 you know. And she was up goring the tree. She was mad, and she finally wandered off. Of course, they found her after a while where she bled out, but she was ticked, you know. But he said I went dunk and 1-2, and I was hanging in the air. She just slammed into that tree like a freight train. Yeah, if you're talking about build a 6.5 hour for money they're asking, I'd have guys come to me to build. I used to build custom rifles, and I'd have somebody want a sniper rifle, and I'd tell them, you know, look, you're just wanting something for long range target work. Really, you're never probably ever going to shoot at somebody with it, and you're just wanting to hit a target way out there. Any gun that has the name varmint associated with it, this is a varmint model, Savage or a Remington or a Winchester back then, or Ruger, will be a really good gun at a whole lot cheaper than what I'm going to charge you to get a gun built that would be maybe equal to what that varmint gun does. So if you're just wanting to get into long range target and see what you can do out there, buy a used varmint rifle, hand load, and when you get where you're ringing gongs at 600 and 700 yards regularly with it, then go invest in something a little bit further out. But I'd have guys come up, oh, they want to build a giant killer. I had this one individual that he wanted me to build on Remington 700 action. He wanted a Winchester 300 Magnum that would hold a 3-inch group at 300 yards, and he wanted the gun to weigh no more than 7 pounds. Now, if money's no object, given enough time and resources, anything's possible. And it took me a while, months and months, to ever get all that to happen. But when I did, and I charged him like $1,800. Back in the day when you could buy a rifle for $200, I charged him $1,800 because I had done so much work to get that thing bedded and dialed in, and contacted Leopold and got a titanium scope with titanium bases and everything, trying to get that weight down. With the caps off, it was 7 pound 00. With the caps on, it was 7 pounds 1 ounce. And when he came to get the rifle and sighted in, because when you got a rifle from me, you got the gun and you got 100 rounds of ammunition hand loaded for it. And I told you from the ground up, I am not in the business of hand loading for you. Whenever you and the guys are going to go out plinking, here's what it likes off the ship, Federal, Winchester, Remington, whatever. Shoot that. When you're going to Montana elk hunting, shoot my hand load. But I'm telling you, when you come back up and you hand me your case and say, I need more, they're $5 a bullet. How many do you want me to load? Because I'm not in the business of reloading for you. And I made that gun. He came out, and I had sent him, kind of like you saw in Quigley Down Under, I had sent him a part of a target that had a group that was just 3 inches. It was, you center in the mass. It's actually just a grunt over. And it'd taken me forever to get that gun dialed into that and then make it do it off the bench. But he came out, and he was so happy. He's a tall dude. And his wife is just so happy, and they're taking pictures. He's holding the gun out by the buttstock one-handed and by the barrel. And then it got time to sit down and sight that gun in for his eyes. And he pulled the trigger on that mamma jamma, and it kicked him like a double barrel 3-inch 12 gauge on maximum load. It started here and it bucked straight up like that. I still see his eyes about that big whenever it just slapped the snot out of him, And he looked at me, and I said, chamber up, sir. We're sighting it in for you now. And my shoulder was black from shooting that thing. And like 2-3 years went by, and I got a call, and it was a crew chief on Fort Rooker, and he said, did you build this gun? I said, if my name's on the top of the barrel, I built that gun. He said, well, I bought it off of this like colonel over here, and is there any way to pull the fangs on this thing? I went, yes, sir, there is. Let me put a heavy varmint stock on it. So he brought me that, and I dropped that ultralight stock off of it, and I put a heavy bench varminting stock on it. Brought the weight of the gun up to about 12.5 pounds, and his 18-year-old daughter hunted deer with it that year out of a deer stand. I mean, it was still just as accurate, but I took a lot of the kick out of it because I put mass to it, But I can still see that guy, like, holding it up, it's so light and everything. He paid me a lot of money for this Yeti killer. That if I was going hand over hand through the Himalayas, yeah, I'd want something like this. But I'm going from the truck to the deer stand. Why do I want to be punished like this every time I pull the trigger? Makes no sense. Yep, the Tiny Titan, the Walther PPSs. Yes, that's a handful in such a small package. But it does kind of want to buck to the right a little bit because it ejects and it cycles. You are correct, Semityrannus. I shot, and I was running out of time. I've got about 25 minutes of video shot. And Bear and I were going to go yesterday out to the range to sight in his turkey muzzleloader, and I was going to take that out there and finish that up. And me getting ready to go to Georgia has just got in the way. I will finish up the New Englander 12 gauge and do the heavy loads and talk about shooting solid shot in it and the medium loads. So I will finish up. I need to shoot about another 10-15 minutes to tie it all together. But I will do it. I promise you. I will do it. Oh, yeah. Jason breaks on the end of a muzzle. Oh, boy, yeah. It can reduce recoil, but man, it makes the report so loud. Years ago, back in the 80s, they brought in a Hakim, which was basically a Egyptian SKS. It's not actually, it's based more on a gun that came out of Sweden, Switzerland, that type idea. But you get the idea. Think SKS. Except it had this muzzle brake on it. There was a bunch of itty bitty holes. Dude, with earplugs in, your ears rang every time you pull the trigger on it. I would shoot one with my earplugs and a set of earmuffs on, and my ears would still ring from them things. A lot of guys just took a hacksaw and cut the muzzle brake off of them, because once you do that, it turned into like a regular SKS and sound. No louder than 30-30, but that tiny little whole cage out there just screamed every time you shot, that gas whistling through. It just, you want them to know you're in this zip code is the only thing I could figure out. You know, you're trying to intimidate by sound, and you want all your soldiers to go, what? I guess they use sign language in the Egyptian army. Tim O'Neill, did you get the email with pictures? If you're talking about you sent something tonight, I have not. I may have in the past couple of days. I don't know. I've got several people have sent me pictures. The reason I'm saying, you know, and for those of you that know Trinity got her first solo turkey today. So I got a string of pictures of those today too. So congrats to Miss Trinity on getting her first solo turkey up in Kentucky. K-Town, hard question. Blackie, what's your favorite bird? If we're talking about hunting or eating, if it's hunting, my favorite bird to hunt is quail. Nerve-wracking? Oh, yeah. The cover we would go in, them things just explode at your feet. That's favorite bird to hunt. It was pure instinct, how fast your reflexes, stuff like that. As far as eating, I'm not fancy. I'll eat whatever. Turkey's really, really good. But I'd say of a hunting bird, my favorite is quail. Dove is great. I just never, dove is okay. I did it like everybody else ate it, but quail was the challenge to me. Ian, hello to the UK. Well, thank you very much. Glad you found some use in it. And thank you for watching the channel. Chicken. Yeah. Hey, we had a hurricane come through when I was little and had a family member had them big old white leghorns, and the barnyard, the chicken house got tore up, and there was about 600, 700, 800 chickens got loose in them woods down there. And we didn't have coyotes back then. And for several years, us boys were chicken hunting, because you go down there in them woods with just full of them big old leghorn chickens. And house cats were hunting them. We were hunting. They just blew up down in them woods. And I have hunted chickens with a 22. I've hunted chickens with a muzzle loader. I've hunted chickens with a cap and ball revolver. So, of course, don't bring them back and pluck them and cook them, but hey, And Robert Wood, yeah, ostrich. We do have some wild ostriches down here. We had one of them ostrich farms over near Op got tore up by a tornado, and he had a bunch of them get loose in the woods. And for several years, we had sightings of wild ostriches. You know, and during hunting season, you'd be in a deer stand, and you'd look up and there'd be an ostrich cutting through the edge of the field or something. So, man, would that ever be a bow shot or a cap and ball video hunting a ostrich with a cap and revolver? That'd be cool. Oh, no, 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 no. Oh, no. Do not hop the fence. Them emus will mess you up, too. Ostriches will mess you up when they're wild. They can kick straight forward. John Cash nearly got killed by an emu. That he had one on his land, and he did something wrong, and that thing attacked him and nearly killed him. So they're big birds, but they are far from helpless. James, I never eaten ostrich to my knowledge. I've heard it's a red meat. You know, it ain't white meat like chicken, but I haven't seen any. I just knew that place over there that my friend lived on that road. And so here was this big, several 100-acre ostrich farm, these big old, 10-foot high chain link fences with a hot wire around the top of it. And then my friend, just like 2 acres past the end of it, he had a trailer out there on that county road. And one of them county roads just dead ends into nowhere. And so it was kind of, and then they had a tornado come through and tore that fence down, and it scattered ostriches. So. Ron, I hear you. I remember a guy posting on Facebook one time saying, my wife got a deer this morning. It'll be $3,800 to repair the Ford, but she got her a deer this morning. Oh, cool. Didn't know it tastes that way. We had one of the hurricanes coming through, 2018, 2017, something like that. And it looked kind of bad. It might have been Michael even. I'm not sure. But down here in North Florida, there was one of those wildlife sanctuaries. And somebody had a bull elk named Buck. I mean, with a big old rack and everything. And a place in Mississippi had volunteered space to let them move a lot of the animals they had down here in Florida over there till the storm passed. And so I remember several, like a tiger lion and several other big animals and stuff. Well, over here near Andalusia, Alabama, at a place called Sneed's, apparently at 3 o'clock in the morning, them trying to transport these animals, they had a hog trailer, it's just fence like around it, pulling behind a pickup truck, and the trailer got a flat on it. And so they stopped down there to try to change the tire. Well, Buck, that 700 and something pound elk in the back of it, he's basically a pet. You hand feed him that big old huge rack. And some 18-wheeler coming in must have seen it and blew the air horn, and it spooked Buck, and he went up and out, and cleared and got out of that trailer. And I guess it was open to the top, or they didn't figure he needed to be restrained that much because he's just a big lap puppy. But for quite a while, they were over in them woods for about 2 months trying to find him, afraid somebody was going to kill him, because you imagine some, whitetail hunter in Alabama used to 150 pound whitetail, and there's a 750 pound deer with this huge rack. Woo! Finally, one of the pilots at Fort Rooker saw it. They were avoiding a thunderstorm and orbiting to let it go by, and it was a student pilot, and he happened to look down, and out in the middle of the country out there was some goat pen, and there stood an elk. The pilot was from Colorado, so he knew what an elk was. And here's a big old elk standing in the middle of a goat pen. And so word got back to the people who were missing the elk, and they showed up at this poor old lady's house and said, "Do you have a deer?" She said, "Oh, you mean the deer?" And they went out back, and in her big old, 2-acre goat enclosure was Buck. She said he showed up about a week after he disappeared, and he'd showed up and stayed with her goats, and she just been feeding him. So they got Buck back. He didn't get hurt. Hello, Dakota. Good evening. No problem. We got started at 8 o'clock tonight, so we're about halfway through now. So welcome to the thing, Dakota. Okay. Tim O'Neill, we've got Russian boar down here in Alabama as well. And you go look at the Hogzilla and things like that was down here. Those are boars and cross boars. We had a hunt club down here in the 1980s called Red Oak Hunting Club that imported Russian boars in sheer stupidity and turned them loose. And I went to their meeting. I went to remember that club and told them, you don't know the history of Russian boar in America. And I told them about it, how we imported them back in the 1700s and how it just laid waste a lot of things. And it took the Revolutionary War and the Civil War for us to finally eat them all up in the Great Depression. And you're going to turn them loose again? These are not little bitty pigs. These are like in a grizzly bear to a black bear. But oh no, they didn't want to hear that. And then you start seeing the reports and the church flyers and things about, have you seen my hog dog? We had dogs that were trained to capture hogs that got out of your pen. And that's what they thought they were going to do, have them run down there and catch them. 125-pound dog versus a 600-pound boar is not a competition. And that boar will kill that dog in one hit. So people always had hog dogs when I was a boy. Everybody had one. It was a pit or a boxer or something like that. And it was trained to grab a hold and a hold, like a herding dog. They were trained to grab them by the nose, by the ear, by the leg, and hold them so you could walk up and hog tie them and then go back in the pen. It's from the piglets got out. All of us would show up at your house and we'd all bring our hog dogs and we'd have a beer and turn the dogs loose and they'd run down the bottom down there, and a domestic pig would bay up in 100 yards or less and get his back up against a tree and just scream at them, and the dogs would make a semicircle. And you'd go there and get to him, and then you'd give the dogs the command and they'd leap in and grab a hold of him, and you'd get in there and get him tied up and bring him out to go put him in the pen or whatever. See? Well, a Russian boar doesn't do that. A Russian boar will take off and run 5 or 6 miles. Your dogs will run clean out of your range. And then they'll turn around when the dogs are exhausted and kill the dogs. So it was a sea change down here. You don't see hog dogs after the mid-'80s. They're gone. Cool. 1858 sheriff with Taylor's and conversion cylinder, 45 Colt. I have not fired yet, but made 6 rounds with Lee loader, 40 grains of black powder, and 300. Is this dangerous? No, that'd be perfectly fine. Should be fine. That's a little heavy bullet because usually it's a 240 or 250 grain bullet, but using the black powder, using 3F, you should be okay because that cylinder is proof for modern smokeless powder. Anything off the shelf. They don't want you to drop a 4.54 Casull load in the thing or whatever, because you can load up the 45 Colt to beat the 44 Magnum, and that little cylinder won't handle that. But it'll handle any black powder load you're going to put in it within reason. Okay. Don't go take a bullet that's designed to go into a 45-70 or a 45-110 and put it in that case like a 300 or 400 grain bullet and then pack powder behind it. That would be too much pressure. But you should be fine in that. It'll be a good thumper, I'm here to tell you, because a black powder Colt kicks a lot harder. The 45 Colt you buy off the shelf is about half power load compared to the black powder, because they're scared you got great granddaddy's antique and you go buy a box of 45 Colt smokeless and drop into it, and you might grenade the cylinder. So they've over time kind of dropped the load down. That's the reason they had to create the 454 Casull and the 460, because that's simply the 45 Colt loaded to modern specs, but it's only going to be put into a modern gun that can handle it, and you wouldn't accidentally drop it into an old antique that wasn't proof for anything near that. Ron, oh, cool. Yeah. Whenever you've got, you know, yes, these are hunting dogs, working dogs, but you get attached to them, you know, especially when you spend a lot of time training them, and then they go and tangle up with something and it's over that way, or worse yet, they're hurt bad and you got to take them to vet and put them down. That's one of the reasons people just quit having hog dogs. Because A, if it was a family pet, he was outclassed. B, if it was a stone cold killer, you know, you had dogs that could take them down, you didn't want them dogs around your kids, you know, because they had to be that big and bad. If they were honestly able to just on command take down one of them big boars, you didn't want them around your kids. And so it really, they just kind of classed themselves right out. Bear, I appreciate it. Thank you for dropping in. And while I'm at Georgia Bushcraft, I told Miss Hope, if there's something comes up, to give you a holler, okay? I do appreciate it. What weight do male boars top out at? Well, I have personally seen an 800 pounder. I've heard of 1,000 pounders, but I've not laid eyes on this. So somewhere, usually it's more common to see a 300 to 500 pounder, but you can have one that's eating good in the neighborhood that can get on up into 600, 700, 800 pounds. Usually when they get that big, they don't want to move much. And so you've got to have a food source, like you've got a somebody that's feeding corn or grain, something like that, to cows or something, the hogs are getting into it, or some other livestock that you're feeding pellet feed into, or a big one is where you've got catfish ponds and things for commercial, and they've got them big old huge piles, you know, they back up an 18-wheeler load of those pellets and dump them to feed those big industrials. And Hogzilla, that's why he was 1,000 pounds, because he was right there at a big fish pond commercial operation where they're raising catfish, and he was eating that real high yield feed, and it'll fatten him up. But it's probably more common to say, you know, anywhere 300 to 500 pounds. It's more common than them big giants, but they're not unheard of. We had my gathering 2 years ago, and like during the gathering, a guy like 5, 6 miles from where we had the gathering at went out the back door to feed a dog and found an 800-pound sitting in his backyard eating dog food out of the bowl. So he just turned around, walked back in the house, and picked up a handgun, stepped out there, and he knew how to shoot hog, you know, out of a barn. Pow! You know, it made the local paper. 800 pounds in the backyard. Not a lot of hunting. Just walk out back and pop him. Oh, yeah, Town. There weren't any bears down here when I was little. We put them back in the 80s and 90s, to the point we've actually got a huntable population in North Florida now, which is not far from me. We have them here, but we do not have a huntable population in Alabama. But the black bear is my granddaddy gave me the advice because when he was a boy, there were. And he said that 99 out of 100 black bears will run from you. They do not come in that order. So usually they're going to run. It's the one that don't. You know, they're big, powerful. When he bows up like that, you see videos of him just ripping a car door right off like it's made out of cardboard. You know, if he ever gets a hold of you, it's just, you better hurt him in a hurry. Dakota, Blackie, what is your opinion on bedrolls or canvas tarps as bedroll? They work well, as long as you're not a lot of bugs or ants or stuff like that. That's probably the ground pounder. But like the cowboy type bedrolls and stuff like that, especially in the fall and spring, where you're not as many bugs and stuff, they work well. They really do. And in fact, we used to do that in living history. We'd take a tarp, and if we were going to be just camping by the fire out in the open where we didn't need overhead because it was a clear night, you know, is we'd take the canvas tarp, lay it down, put our blankets in the middle, fold one like that, fold the other one in and over like that, and you'd wiggle in the top, lift up and tuck your feet under, and then throw the tarp over you like that, and which is like a cowboy bedroll, and they slept well. You just pull it over your any kind of little do, they can do pretty good. Right, exactly. I'm not going to shoot one of them big, huge hogs unless we got a group that's going to help process that. I'd rather have a 50-pounder, something about the size of a pit bull. Perfect. When you clean it, it's about that big. You got something you can bake, have him into 3 or 4 big hunks, a couple of big meals, you're good. As opposed to, we got 200 pounds of meat. What are we going to do with it? You'll get sick of bacon after a while, trust me. Okay, Justin asks, what are the boots I wear? My boots that I wear are desert rats that the Marine Corps, that's what they call them, desert rat. And Marine Corps issued, got them down there, Coffin military surplus, like $60, new in the pack, never issued. If you go looking at them online, they're like $100 boot. Tony, my buddy had a black bear come visit in a tree stand. I didn't know. He didn't see it coming. We had a video from, I think, last year down here in North Florida where a guy was sitting on a tree stand looking for deer. And this black bear runs up, comes up the tree and is eye level with him. He just come up to the tree even with him, looking at him. And the guy just froze and sat there. He had his trail camera. He just turned it and showed it and just sat dead still. And after a minute, the bear sniffing his ear and everything else, he finally went back to the tree, and then he got about 30 yards out. And then the bigger bear that was chasing him, he came up that tree not to get to him, to get away from the big bear. And they took off running down through the woods. So, yeah, they'll come up a tree in a hurry. A bobcat will do the same thing. I had a good friend of mine that he had a pair of real nice Carhartt pants shredded, where he shot and did not know that bobcat was under him. He was so focused over, and he can hardly hear anyway. He was an Army vet from Korea, and he was so focused on that deer over there that he did not know that bobcat basically underneath his stand. And when he pulled that trigger, that bobcat come up that tree and just tore up a pair of boots and a pair of Carhartt pants. Luckily, it didn't shred him up bad. He had quite a few scratches and bled quite a bit, but nothing required stitches. But them pants just were, hula skirt. He just eat him up, and then he jumped down and took off. So, yeah, they will come up a tree like lightning. K-Town Bear smokes his bacon. And next time he's on, next week, if he's back on, ask him about it. Now, he and I have a plan. Once it warms up, where it's just too hot to do anything else, we're going to go into his kitchen and we're going to do some canning and some stuff for his channel. And one of the things we plan on doing is smoking bacon, because he can get the slabs of bacon from the local butcher, and we've done that in the past. He gave me a big slab of his smoked bacon. It was very, very good. So we'll talk y'all through how to make bacon, just taking the meat and using smoke. And you don't have to have a fancy smokehouse. There's a lot of different tips and tricks you can use to do it. Alton Brown did a very interesting thing where he took a big cardboard box, like one that a filing cabinet would come in, or a refrigerator or something, and he put wooden dowels through and took the oven rack and sat in it, okay? And then at the bottom, he cut out a door that he could open up, and he put a hot plate in there with a cake pan, and he'd put wood chips in it so that it would make the smoke going up, and he put a thermometer, just harpooned to the thing, just covered the top up, and he used that as a smoker. So Alton Brown did that in his Good Eats TV show. And so you can do that on a back deck without any big fancy gear. Thank you very much, Tiny Titan. Jeff Alexander, what can one expect as ultimate performance out of the Ruger Old Army? It'll do anything a 45 Colt will do at close range. A Kerr bullet would be what I'd recommend. Okay, now Kato Ojama's bullets are basically Keith bullets made for cap and ball. And so if you're looking for performance, those are really, really good. It's following Elmer Keith's design. It's just made to go into a cap and ball. But step over, Kerr bullet would do a really good job too from Arizona bullet molds. And you'll get better penetration, etc. And especially if you've got one of the Ruger Old Armies that's got adjustable sights, you can dial it in real well. 25, 30 yards, you should have no problem taking whitetail, hog, whatever. It's as good as a 45 Colt. Bullet's about the same weight, bullet at least the same speed. I've demonstrated out of my guns. I had my short barrel Remington and a Johnson & Howe, and the bullet was leaving the barrel at 975 feet per second. That's a 45 caliber, 200 and some odd grain bullet. Ain't nothing to sneeze at. And that was in that short barrel. And then my Dragoon, I think it broke 1,000. I know the Walker broke 1,171 feet per second on my chronograph. So yeah, they'll do the job. The Walker loaded properly. The thing that's going to outclass it has got to have the word Magnum after its name. It was not until we got the 357 Magnum that found a more powerful handgun than that old cap and ball revolver. So the Ruger Old Army can be in that league if done correctly. Yeah, Grey Wolf, exactly. He made one out with the pan and the hot plate in the bottom and aluminum. Yeah, it doesn't have to be fancy. How many times have you seen it where they've taken a old metal filing cabinet and cut out holes in the bottom and put mesh in, and use the bottom one as the burner tray, and the 3 drawers above it, they just close it up, and put a little air vent in the top that can open and close, and make it into a smoker. I've seen several of those converted to a back porch smoker. There's a lot of things you can do with smoke. Hello, Dakota's wife. How you doing? Thank you for saying hey. I'm gonna be we get off of here, it's going to be serious bass time. And then I'm going to be hitting the hay, and I'm going to be getting up at 5 a.m. to head north on my convoluted flight plan over there to get to Georgia Bushcraft. And I'll be up there tomorrow night. You will have a new video posting on Friday and a new Advanced Woodcraft posting on Sunday. And that'll get you caught up when I get back. So I won't be commenting on any of my videos because I'll be up there. And but I am taking my camera, and I am planning on walking around the event and taking some pictures. I hate being that guy, that's hey, who are you and where are you from? Just, it feels rude to me. I'm sorry. But I will walk around the event and give y'all a little bit of taste of it and etc. And I'm planning on doing something I have not done at any of these events. I'm going to go to a couple of classes, not that I know everything. It's not that at all. It's just, I want to do classes just to see other people's opinion on various topics. That's how you learn. Never assume you learn and know everything. I always assume there's always a different way to do it. And I've had people show me things that I would have never thought of, Sometimes they show you a new trick. Sometimes they show you a way not to do something. Like, wow, that didn't fly, did it? But you always go to enjoy it, and just be respectful and have fun. And that's what I'm planning on doing. I talked to Mike Simmons about 7 o'clock tonight, and he said that there are already a bunch of vendors up there. A lot of people done set up, and I've got several people that want to get with me and talk privately about some stuff for the coming year. So we will see how that works out. We may be putting on classes next year for my gathering. That the weekend before we'll have classes like fuel the fire pay classes, that type deal. And then that'll end and my event will start. So the people that don't want to do the classes can still come to my event and camp out and us do like we did this time. On the other hand, those that want to do official classes, they'll have that opportunity, and this should make several of my friends in here happy that it'll make my event a long event. So we'll have the first weekend and the second weekend. We shall see. Gordon, have you put Bear in charge of the Blackbird Cookbook? Yes, I have. That was his idea, and by God, he's gonna run that puppy. I had not said anything about doing a cookbook, and suddenly here we go. Dakota, Blackie, how's your hobo fishing kit changed since you posted a few years ago? I've changed my lures a little bit, and I've still got it hanging up here. And when we get together in the lake, I'll bring it and show you how to do it. Mine is, like you see, it's just a handle of an old broom, a can, and a plastic lid to slide down and thing on the outside. I can flip that sucker right out there and sit there and reel up and catch with it. It's a lot of fun. I learned to use those as a small child. I can honestly say it's probably the first reel. My uncle took a soup can and a stick and just coiled a line up on it for me and gave me a couple of wigglers and a little bitty paper cup at a church picnic and told me to fish in the pond. He just went out to the pickup and pulled line with a hook and a cork off of a reel, and then made that up, drove a nail down through the bottom of the can into that stick, wrapped it up, tied it and all, and showed me how to take my finger, and I had to use 2 hands. I was little, and so I would like grab that with my finger on the line, and you do like that and point, and yonder. Of course, I was throwing it about 2 feet in front of me, but eventually I did figure out how to sling it, and had a lot of fun. So those are not to be just dismissed. You can feed yourself with them if you've got a little bit of skill. And a lot of places where it's just so thick cover over your head, you can't work a big rod or reel. Those are perfect. I can just go, flip out there and do like that and do it that way. But Dakota, when we get together, I'll show you. Benton, hope to see you too. I'll be showing up around lunchtime, local time, Friday, and I'll be there till probably about lunch or a little after on Sunday, and I'll be headed home. Well, guys, that's an hour and 20 minutes. I'm going to call it a little short night because I'm tired, and I got a long way to go in the morning. So thank y'all so very much for all the comments and everything. I really do appreciate it. And thank y'all so much for all the support for the channel. There'll be more stuff coming, more videos coming. And feel free to send me requests or questions, whatever. I'm here to help. That's what I'm trying to do. So till next time, guys, y'all have a great day. Have a good night. I'll see you next time. Good night.